Hello everybody, welcome once again to Manga Mondays, the only manga review show that remembered to turn on the microphone this week. Today I'm going to be talking about The Girl from the Other Side. This is a new series that Seven Seas is publishing that I picked up pretty much on the strength of this cover and the overall aesthetic alone. I saw this sort of dark, gothy looking monster with this adorable little girl, flipped through, saw some pretty nice looking artwork, and I thought, yeah, I'll give it a shot. And granted, when I opened this thing, I kind of knew exactly what I was in for, and I knew exactly how this would disappoint me. Like, I knew that I wasn't going to be hugely in love with this, but that it would fulfill the same niche as a bunch of other things I've seen, which is to say, there's a lot of these stories that are sort of these beautifully drawn, very slow-paced, tonal art pieces that feature some kind of combining of the dark and gothic feel with the cutesy and fun feel, like a mixture of slice of life and this overall foreboding that's happening in the distance somewhere. To compare it to a show that most people have probably seen, I would say like Over the Garden Wall, though that show has a lot more comedy focused than something like this. Like that feeling of this is like a cutesy sort of kids on an adventure, but drawn with this very rustic art style and with this sense of something darker happening in the background. Though when I picked this up, the first thing it made me think of was Shoulder a Coffin Kuro. I guess I'll do a different video about that sometime. And a little bit of The Ancient Magus's Bride, which I haven't really read, but the fact that it's a gigantic goat-headed magic man with a tiny girl. I mean, granted, the girl in Ancient Magus's Bride is not that small, but so basically, this is it's sort of a supernatural mystery in a fantasy setting where we're introduced to this little girl who's with this big scary man, and they're out in the forest, and he's just kind of taking care of her. They're living together, and for whatever reason, she cannot touch him because he's suffering some kind of curse, which is transmitted via touch. And they're out in a shack in the middle of the woods, and it seems like everyone in all the towns and everything nearby is dead or gone. And meanwhile, we learn eventually of a mythos that there's this sort of city, a walled-off city. There's people who live inside the walls and outside the walls, and the outsiders are the cursed people. And so, the people inside the wall are kind of trying to keep them away. Though we don't understand much about the curse or anything. I'm trying to describe the plot, but it's difficult because so much of it is intentionally mysterious. Which is kind of what again, like, when I pick up something like this, I'm expecting a very slow-moving plot that ekes out little bits of information as it goes, and tries to sort of swallow you slowly in this darker tone. But I will say that this moves a little bit faster than I was expecting, in that each chapter kind of ends with a cliffhanger. There's usually some kind of like dramatic reveal towards the back end. Some plot events do happen in Volume 1, and it feels like it might be going somewhere by the end. So yeah, it's almost odd to read something that for the most part is kind of slow, meandering slice of life, but that always ends on some kind of dramatic cliffhanger. So it definitely has that a little bit of spice to it compared to a lot of stories of this nature. But in a way that also kind of weakens it because it's not that strong of a tone piece, I think. I mean, it kind of is what it is. If you're the kind of person who you look at this and it seems like something you'd enjoy, you want to see like a stoic man who's trying to just take care of this little girl, and he's not entirely sure how to go about it, especially because he can't touch her. She's just a bright, cheery little girl who's just perfectly adorable and happy, and she's she's a kid. She most of her mistakes are out of the fact that she's a child, and she does make some mistakes. But you know, it's whatever. I feel like you can tell what this is gonna be just by looking at it. Like, you could probably take a glance at this, and if you're the kind of person who would see this art and go, I have to read that, then you should. But if you're like me and you take a look at this and you think, well, I know this is going to be disappointing, but I'm going to buy it anyways, then maybe don't, because it's exactly what you're thinking it's going to be. I mean, I can't say I'd pay for another volume of this. Like, I'm kind of curious about where it's going to go, but, like, I don't care that much about the characters. Like, I've seen this kind of relationship done before. I've seen this kind of setting done before. You know, I've seen this dark-toned fairy tale kind of thing, which, of course, you know, the book goes for this, oh, once upon a time, oh, it's a dark fairy tale. And I'm like, yeah, what? I guess it's not even really a dark fairy tale. It's just a fairy tale, but, like, you know, a classically styled one, but like nothing about it stands out to me so much. I mean, the artwork is really good, but it's not like, you know, so good that it's worth the price of admission alone, which incidentally is $13 for a pretty short book, you know, pretty small and quick read, not a whole lot of dialogue in it. So yeah, I guess I only recommend this to someone who would look at it and immediately know it was going to be your thing. Otherwise, forget about it. That's it for this episode. I'll pick up in the next one. You may notice that my manga stash just keeps growing as these episodes go by. So, you know, I've got plenty more where this came from.